Hello, I hope you are well, whoever you may be. I've been thinking of what to speak on next with my limited experience and limited value I can provide. And one thing I've been thinking of a large portion of my life is money, which I'm sure most people think of quite a bit. Money is an interesting thing. Recently, I heard someone say money is water, which I thought was incredibly accurate and useful to think of it like that. And when you learn financial terminology, you'll hear people say things like cash flow, as in there's a flow to money in the way that water would flow, like the water down below me making a beautiful noise here. And the more you use that as a parable or a theory behind cash or money or currency, whatever you want to call it, debt, assets, liquidity. Liquidity, another example of a term directly related to water. And then if you think about it even farther, us humans are water, almost completely made up of water. And if you're dehydrated, you're going to have issues. If you're not moving, there's no movement, you become stagnant and rusty and not feeling great. Just like water likes to be moving. Water likes flow. If you've got a puddle sitting there doing nothing, it's going to become stagnant, filled with mosquitoes, parasites, leeches, and eventually it'll evaporate, sink back into the earth, and it won't smell great. If you have money sitting in your account or your pocket or wherever, that's not doing anything, not flowing, there's this thing called interest. It's also this thing called inflation. It's also this thing called an emergency where, oh, the pizza guy's here, I don't have a tip, I'll just use this. Or I don't want to make dinner, so I'll just use this. Or that's a cute shirt, I'll get that for a friend. Or yeah, I'll get the extra large order instead of just a small or medium or whatever. The money starts getting attacked by leeches and parasites and inflation, which you could call evaporation. Your water will start to disappear if it sits there after being attacked by all kinds of sources, heat. Your money will start to disappear from various... A river or an ocean is fed by many streams. The Great River is fed by many streams. And likewise, it's drained by many streams. If you have much coming in and more coming out, you're going to have an issue. If you have a surplus of what's coming in, it could overflow into a catastrophe, and that could be an example of you having too much and turning into this horrible mess of a person if you don't manage what you have. It's about a balance and flow. If you're in flow, there's maybe some abundance or lack thereof, but you're managing it like a farmer will irrigate their field, create pathways for the currency, the gold, the water to move through the land to grow into something better. Likewise, your investments, if you're investing in a windmill or a mill that's powered by hydro, a hydro dam collecting electricity from movement of water, just water pressure. You have a reserve often behind those investments sitting there. That way, if it doesn't rain for a month or two or longer, you have that reserve there, and you're not so stressed out about lack of rain or lack of income. If you don't have that reserve, then your windmill's sitting there, or your dam, your mill, sitting there without any power, no flow to get it moving. You can't afford gas for a car. It's not too useful anymore. You can still sleep in it. You can still hang out at your mill, but you can't do a whole lot. Been thinking about things like that quite a bit. Comes back to also for me language and what we summon to our mind when we cast a spell of a word and put it out there for your own ears or other ears. What comes to mind when you say that word? When you say money, when you hear the word money, do you go straight to debt and bills and negativity and tension? That's probably not healthy. But if you hear money and you hear water, you can work with that, because you can drown in water, but you also really need water to live. You need a balance of flow. There's a French painting. The painting is of a pipe. Now, I say the painting is of a pipe, but you can dissect that one statement ad nauseum. You can dive into that statement for quite a long, lengthy, complicated conversation. Underneath the painting of the pipe, he has written in French, and my pronunciation might be trash, I apologize. If there's an astute scholar or bilingual athlete of languages who will criticize me, but it says, if I recall correctly, "Ceci un est pipe." This is not a pipe. Very simple painting, representation of a pipe. Then it says, this is not a pipe. So what do you make of that? Well, you could say, well, it's not a pipe, it's a painting. Well, I get that. But is it a painting? Is it a pipe? Yes, but also. Yes, it's a pipe, but also it's a painting. But also it's a political statement that was released during uprising in France. I don't know all the history about that. I try to retain things that feel more important, being the big picture versus the details, but the government likes to use language as a tool, a weapon, and likewise money as a tool and a weapon. Likewise, water can be used as a tool and a weapon if you remove it, overflow it, flood people out. All very powerful, dangerous things: money, water, language. So, what I mean by manipulating language? Well, if you've made it this far, you're probably the kind of intelligent person who watches these things already and notices them. It's little changes that people make to what's socially acceptable to be said. You're not allowed to say this word anymore. We call it this, not that anymore. There's a book, 1984, by George Orwell. You might hear the term Orwellian used in political conversations. In that book, there's a ministry of truth tasked with editing, manipulating, removing, and destroying past language and the uses of. The main character on his daily routine goes through journalistic reports, edits them to approved language. It's a very dangerous thing, and it's so easy to just fall into the trap of using the language that's used. And it takes a lot of education, awareness, and complicated awareness, because we think in words and images and feelings, but a word has almost no correlation to the thing itself. You call this a pipe, but what this really is a piece of briar wood from a tree that was probably alive for 200 years. This pipe alone is probably 20 years old. The tree could have been 150 years old. Can you really, are you really capable of giving a name to that tree? Can you even name yourself? We're given a name, but is that really what you are? For example, water, you call it water, but it's also ice. It's also snow. Also vapor, clouds, rain, mist, moisture. There's a million names for it because we don't truly have a language powerful enough to tell you what it is, because it's everything. It's these trees, it's my ability to speak right now, produce noises. That'd be pretty tough if I was all dried out, being able to speak. So with money, watch the language you use and understand the history behind the language. For example, rent is an old, I think it was Greek. It's an old word that comes from to hold. You don't own it, you're holding it. And debt is another rabbit hole you can fall into. That's really voluntary, sometimes not so voluntary, slavery. People like to talk about slavery a lot. It's still here, it's alive and well. Luckily, in a capitalist society, you're given the tools to get out of it, but it takes serious work. It takes you managing your water flow, your land, and your tools and your investments, pushing that pressure into your mill and your hydroelectric dam, pushing pressure and movement and flow to get things to start doing what you want them to do. You have to manipulate the world around you in a balanced, non-destructive, productive way that society looks upon your work and says, that's valuable, and that's useful, that can help me and my family. And then more flow will come to you because you're an astute manager of that flow. They look to you and say, he's very productive with what you're doing. I trust you with more. Now, you may get to the point where you can only hold so much water in your lake, and you don't want to or can't handle more. And that's, do you think everyone can handle $1 billion? I think that would be a good thing if everyone were to just be given $1 million right now. Would that be productive for people? Or would they drown themselves? Would you drown yourself in alcohol? Would you drown yourself in prostitute friendship, fake friendship, false social stature? mindful of your language, of how you are managing your flow, how you are speaking to yourself and of others and of things that it is your responsibility and privilege to manage. One thing at a time. Breathe deep and go tell someone a joke. Have a good day, friends.